I first noticed something was off when our 2-year-old daughter started developing features that looked nothing like me. Jessica would brush it off, but the doubt kept growing. When I finally mentioned getting a paternity test, my wife mocked me. "Only pathetic men need those," she sneered. But the results confirmed my worst fears. Not only was I not Sophia's father, but I had proof of who was. While I reveal how I secretly collected her lover's DNA from a BBQ glass, take a moment to let me know where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you have ever had your trust broken in a relationship. 6 years ago, I met Jessica at the law firm where she worked. I was there as a consulting architect for their new building project. From the moment we locked eyes across the conference table, there was an undeniable connection. Her brilliant mind and contagious laugh drew me in instantly. After our 3rd meeting, I finally worked up the courage to ask her out for coffee. Our relationship progressed quickly after that. Jessica was everything I had been looking for in a partner. Smart, ambitious, caring, and with a sense of humor that matched my own. Within a year of dating, I proposed during a weekend trip to Lake Tahoe. The sunrise proposal on the shore was perfect, and her tearful yes made me the happiest man alive. Our wedding was intimate but beautiful. Just close friends and family at a small vineyard outside of Sacramento. We wrote our own vows, promising honesty, faithfulness, and a lifetime of love. Looking back now, I wonder if she meant any of those words, or if they were just empty promises. After the wedding, our careers continued to flourish. My architectural firm was growing, and I was taking on more significant projects throughout California. Jessica was making a name for herself at Thompson Wilkins & Gray, specializing in corporate law. Our busy schedules meant we often worked late, but we always made time for each other on weekends. 3 years into our marriage, Jessica surprised me with the news that she was pregnant. I remember that night vividly. She had prepared my favorite meal and placed a small gift box next to my plate. Inside was a tiny pair of baby shoes. I was overcome with emotion. Having a family with Jessica was my dream come true. The pregnancy went smoothly, and 9 months later, our daughter Sophia came into the world. The first time I held her in my arms, I felt a love I had never experienced before. She was perfect with her tiny fingers and toes. Jessica joked that she had my smile, and I believed her. Why would I not? This was my wife and my daughter. For the first few months, everything seemed perfect. I took 2 months of paternity leave to help with the baby and Jessica, and I adjusted to our new life as parents. But as I returned to work, and Jessica prepared to go back to the law firm, things began to change. Jessica started acting differently. She became distant and secretive with her phone. There were late-night calls she would take in another room, claiming they were work-related. She began attending client meetings on weekends, something that had never happened before the baby. One night, while Jessica was in the shower, her phone lit up with a message. I had never been the type to snoop, but something compelled me to look. The message simply read, "Miss you. Cannot wait until next time." The sender was saved as Jason W. Jason Wilkins was one of the partners at her firm. I confronted Jessica about the message, but she brushed it off, claiming it was about a case they were working on together. I wanted to believe her, but doubt had started to creep in. As Sophia grew, I began to notice things that troubled me. At 18 months, her features were becoming more defined and they looked nothing like mine. My family has distinctive dark brown eyes, but Sophia's were bright blue. Jessica's eyes were green. When I mentioned this to Jessica, she quickly reminded me that her father had blue eyes, so it must be from his side of the family. But it was not just the eyes. My olive skin tone from my Mexican-American heritage was nowhere to be seen in our daughter, who had fair skin that burned easily in the sun, unlike both Jessica and me. My thick, dark hair was not passed on either. Sophia had thin, almost blonde hair. During a family gathering, my cousin Maria, who never had a filter, bluntly stated that Sophia looked nothing like me. The room went silent, and I noticed Jessica's face turn white before she quickly changed the subject. That moment stuck with me. The doubts continued to grow, but I pushed them away, focusing instead on being a good father to Sophia, whom I loved unconditionally. Yet each time someone commented on how little Sophia resembled me, I saw the uncomfortable shift in Jessica's demeanor. One night, I met my best friend Patrick for drinks after work. We had known each other since college, and he was one of the few people I trusted completely. After a few beers, I confided in him about my growing suspicions. "Something does not feel right, Pat. I cannot put my finger on it, but I am starting to wonder if Sophia is really mine." Patrick put down his beer and looked at me seriously. My cousin went through something similar. Turned out his wife had been cheating for years. He found out when their second kid needed medical treatment, and blood types did not match up. What did he do? I asked, feeling my stomach twist. Got a paternity test. Confirmed his suspicions. It was tough, but he said knowing the truth was better than living the lie. I nodded, considering his words carefully. Do you think I should get one? If it will give you peace of mind, then yes. You can do it discreetly with home kits these days. That night, I could barely sleep, torn between my love for Sophia and the growing suspicion that she might not be my biological child. The next day, I ordered a home paternity test online. When it arrived, I hid it in my desk drawer at home, still unsure if I would actually go through with it. One evening after putting Sophia to bed, I decided it was time to confront my fears. Jessica and I were having dinner, and in a moment of courage, I brought up the subject of a paternity test. I have been thinking, I started, my voice shaking slightly. I would like to get a paternity test for Sophia. Jessica's fork clattered onto her plate. What did you just say? A paternity test, I repeated more firmly this time. I think it would be good to have for medical records and such. Her face transformed from shock to anger in seconds. Are you accusing me of something, Emilio? After everything we have been through together? I am not accusing you, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. I just want to know for sure. Jessica stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Only pathetic men need those, she sneered, her voice dripping with contempt. Men who are insecure about their masculinity. Is that what you are, Emilio, pathetic and insecure? Her words cut deep, but they also confirmed my suspicions. Why would she react so strongly, unless she had something to hide? The argument escalated quickly. Jessica's voice rose to a shout, causing Sophia to wake up and cry from her bedroom. As I went to comfort our daughter, Jessica continued to berate me, claiming I was trying to destroy our family with my baseless suspicions. That night I slept on the couch, my mind racing. The next morning, Jessica acted as if nothing had happened, but there was a coldness between us that had never been there before. Over the next few weeks, I began to pay closer attention to Jessica's movements. She was now taking extra precautions with her phone, changing her password and never leaving it unattended. But her carelessness came in other forms. One evening, she told me she had a late client meeting. Suspicious, I decided to follow her after work. I watched as she entered an upscale restaurant in downtown Sacramento. 20 minutes later, a man joined her at the table. It was Jason Wilkins, the partner from her firm. From my position near the bar, I could see them clearly. This was no business meeting. Their hands touched across the table, and at one point he leaned in and kissed her. My heart felt like it was being ripped from my chest, but I forced myself to stay and document what I was seeing. I discreetly took photos with my phone, evidence I hoped I would never need but knew I might. The following week, Jessica left her phone unlocked when she went to take a shower. It was a rare mistake on her part. With shaking hands, I opened her messages. The conversation with Jason W. confirmed everything. They had been having an affair for over 2 years, starting before Sophia was conceived. There were intimate messages, plans for secret meetings, and even discussions about their future together. I copied some of the messages and emailed them to myself before carefully putting her phone back. I felt sick to my stomach, but I knew I needed all the evidence I could gather. The final piece of evidence came when I found a hotel receipt in Jessica's purse while looking for car keys she had borrowed. The date on the receipt coincided with a weekend conference she had attended 3 weeks prior. With all this information weighing on me, I consulted with a lawyer friend, making sure to keep Jessica's name out of it. He advised me on my rights regarding custody and property division in case of divorce, especially in situations involving infidelity and paternity fraud. But I still needed definitive proof about Sophia. And ideally, I wanted evidence linking Jason directly to her. That is when I formulated my plan. Jessica had been suggesting we host a barbecue for ages, as a way to show off our newly landscaped backyard to friends and colleagues. I finally agreed, suggesting she invite people from her firm as well. She was surprised by my sudden enthusiasm, but delighted at the opportunity to blend our social circles. The day before the barbecue, I contacted a private laboratory and got detailed instructions on how to properly collect DNA samples. I purchased the necessary supplies and hid them in my home office. The day of the barbecue arrived, and our backyard filled with friends, family, and colleagues. Jason arrived with a bottle of expensive wine, greeting Jessica with a hug that lasted just a second too long. I shook his hand firmly, looking him directly in the eyes while he had no idea I knew everything. Throughout the afternoon, I played the role of perfect host, grilling food, refilling drinks, and engaging in small talk. All the while, I was watching Jessica and Jason, carefully noting their subtle glances and the way they maneuvered to have brief conversations away from the group. My opportunity came when Jason excused himself to use the bathroom. He had been drinking from a glass of bourbon, leaving it on a side table. I casually picked it up, along with a few other empty glasses, taking them into the kitchen. Once alone, I quickly swabbed the rim of his glass with the DNA collection kit and sealed it in the provided envelope. I then took a fresh glass from the cabinet, poured a new bourbon, and returned it to where his old one had been. The rest of the barbecue passed in a blur. As guests departed, Jason lingered, helping Jessica clean up while I put Sophia to bed. From the nursery, I could hear their hushed voices and occasional laughter. It took everything in me not to confront them, then and there. But I needed the paternity test results first. I needed irrefutable evidence. The next day, I mailed both DNA samples, Sophia's collected from her toothbrush and Jason's from his glass, to the laboratory. They assured me results would be available within 2 weeks. Those were the longest 2 weeks of my life. Each day of waiting felt like an eternity. Jessica and I maintained a strained politeness at home, like actors playing the roles of husband and wife. I threw myself into my work, taking on extra projects to keep my mind occupied. At night, I would sit in Sophia's room watching her sleep, wondering if the love I felt for her would change once I knew the truth. Exactly 14 days after sending the samples, I received an email notification that my results were ready. I was at the office when the email arrived, and my hands trembled so badly, I could barely click the link. I closed my office door, took a deep breath, and opened the report. The results were conclusive. According to the DNA analysis, there was a 0% probability that I was Sophia's biological father, and there was a 99.99% match between Jason's DNA and Sophia's. The scientific confirmation of what I had suspected hit me like a physical blow. I sat at my desk, unable to move as tears streamed down my face. After composing myself, I called my lawyer and forwarded him the test results. He advised me to gather all my evidence in one place and to consider my next steps carefully. Did I want to confront Jessica immediately? Or did I want to build my case further before making any moves? I decided that I had enough. The truth was out, at least to me, and I could not continue living this lie for even one more day. I left work early and stopped to pick up copies of all the evidence I had collected: the paternity test results, screenshots of text messages, photos from the restaurant, the hotel receipt, and a USB drive containing recordings of recent conversations with Jessica, where she had lied about her whereabouts. When I arrived home, Jessica was not back from work yet. I arranged all the evidence on our dining room table with the paternity test results in the center. Then I sat down and waited. Jessica arrived home around 6, carrying takeout dinner and chatting animatedly about her day. She stopped mid-sentence when she saw me sitting at the dining table, my face grave. "What is all this?" she asked, eyeing the paper spread across the table. "The truth," I replied, simply pushing the paternity test results toward her. Jessica's face drained of color as she scanned the document. She looked up at me, then back at the paper, her mouth opening and closing without words. "You had no right," she finally whispered. "No right." My voice was steady despite the anger boiling inside me. "No right to know that I have been raising another man's child. No right to know that my wife has been sleeping with her colleague for years. It is not what you think she started," but I cut her off. "Stop lying, Jessica. I have everything here." I gestured to the evidence on the table. The text messages, the photos of you two together, the hotel receipts, and now this proof that Jason is Sophia's father. Jessica collapsed into a chair, her defiance crumbling. "How did you even get his DNA?" "That glass of bourbon he enjoyed so much at our barbecue," I said, allowing myself a small bitter smile. "You were not the only one who could be sneaky." Tears began to stream down her face. "I never meant for this to happen, Emilio. It started as just a fling, something exciting." When I demanded, "When did it start?" 3 years ago, she admitted, not meeting my eyes. "You were so busy with that big project in San Francisco, working late every night, gone most weekends." "So you are blaming me for your affair?" I asked incredulously. No, I just..." She trailed off, knowing there was no justification. "When I found out I was pregnant, I thought, I hoped it was yours. But you knew it might not be, and you never said anything. You let me believe Sophia was mine. You let me fall in love with her, knowing all along she might be Jason's." Jessica nodded, her shoulders shaking with sobs. "I was scared of losing everything. I love you, Emilio. Despite everything, I do love you." "Love does not lie like this," I said, my voice breaking for the first time. "Love does not betray trust like this." Unknown to Jessica, I had been recording our entire conversation. I now had her confession on tape, admitting to the affair, and knowingly letting me believe Sophia was mine. It was the final piece of evidence I needed. I have already spoken with a lawyer, I told her. I am filing for divorce. What about Sophia? Jessica asked, panic rising in her voice. I am not her father, I said, the words burning my throat. But I love her, and I will fight for visitation rights. I have been the only father she has known, and I will not abandon her. And Jason, what about him? Jessica asked. That is between you two. I suggest you tell him he has a daughter before he hears it from someone else. The next day I hand-delivered copies of all the evidence, including the paternity test, to Jason at his office. The look of shock on his face gave me a small measure of satisfaction. He stammered apologies and excuses, but I simply walked away. My business with him was done. I also contacted both our families, telling them the truth before Jessica could spin her own version. It was painful, especially explaining to my parents that their beloved granddaughter was not biologically related to them, but they assured me of their continued love for both me and Sophia, regardless of DNA. The final part of my plan involved Jessica's firm. I did not directly contact her superiors, but I made sure the information about the affair between a partner and an associate became known in professional circles. Within a week, Jessica was placed on administrative leave, pending an investigation into professional misconduct. Jason, with his family connections to the firm, faced less severe consequences, but his reputation was severely damaged. While all this was happening, I moved into a small apartment nearby, taking only what I needed. Jessica begged me to reconsider, promising to end things with Jason, offering marriage counseling, suggesting we could move past this. But the trust was irrevocably broken. There was no going back. The divorce proceedings were finalized 6 months later. Despite not being Sophia's biological father, the judge granted me regular visitation rights, considering the bond we had formed in her first 2 years of life. Jason, now forced to acknowledge his paternity, showed little interest in being a father to Sophia, providing child support but rarely visiting. The first few months after learning the truth were the darkest of my life. The betrayal cut deep, making it difficult to trust anyone. Some days the anger was so overwhelming I could barely function. Other days the sadness would hit without warning, leaving me in tears over the family I had lost. But slowly, with time and the help of a good therapist, I began to heal. I joined a support group for men dealing with paternity fraud, finding comfort in sharing experiences with others who understood my pain. Their stories helped me realize I was not alone, and that it was possible to rebuild a life after such betrayal. I threw myself into my work, taking on challenging projects that required my full attention. The distraction was therapeutic, and the success I found professionally helped restore some of the confidence I had lost personally. I even opened my own architectural firm, something I had dreamed of for years, but had put off while focusing on family life. The most complicated part of my healing process was figuring out my relationship with Sophia. Despite knowing she was not biologically mine, I could not simply switch off the love I felt for her. For 2 years I had been her father in every way that mattered. I had fed her, bathed her, rocked her to sleep, kissed her scraped knees, and celebrated her milestones. Biology aside, she was still my daughter in my heart. Our visitation schedule gave me time with Sophia every other weekend, and one evening during the week. At first, these visits were awkward, with Jessica hovering anxiously, and Sophia confused by the new arrangement. But gradually we established a new normal. Sophia would run to me excitedly when I came to pick her up, shouting "Daddy" in her sweet toddler voice. One particularly meaningful moment came about 8 months after the divorce. I was putting Sophia to bed after a day at the zoo, and as I tucked her in, she looked up at me with those blue eyes that had once caused me so much pain and said, "I love you, Daddy. You are my best daddy." In that moment, I knew that regardless of DNA, the bond between us was real and unbreakable. Ironically, as Jason continued to be an absent father, Jessica began to appreciate what she had thrown away. During drop-offs and pickups, she would make comments about how lucky Sophia was to have me in her life and how she regretted her choices. While part of me felt vindicated by her regret, I was careful not to get pulled back into her emotional orbit. Instead, I focused on creating a stable, loving environment during my time with Sophia and on building a new life for myself. I reconnected with old friends, took up hiking and photography, and even started dating again, though cautiously. About 1.5 years after the divorce, I met Amanda at a charity event my firm had helped organize. She was a pediatric nurse with a warm smile and a genuine manner that put me at ease immediately. Over coffee, I learned she was divorced herself after discovering her husband's infidelity. Our shared experiences created an immediate bond, though we both carried scars that made us wary of rushing into anything serious. When I eventually told Amanda the full story about Jessica, Jason, and Sophia, I expected sympathy or perhaps discomfort. Instead, she surprised me with her insight. "Biology does not make a father," she said simply. "Love, commitment, and showing up every day, that is what makes a parent. Sophia is lucky to have you regardless of whose DNA she carries." Her words helped cement a truth I had been coming to on my own, that family is not always defined by blood. Sometimes, it is created through love choice and commitment day after day. Today, 3 years after discovering the truth, my life looks nothing like I had once planned, but I have found peace and even happiness in this new reality. Sophia, now 5, still runs to me with open arms during our visits. Jessica and I have established a cordial co-parenting relationship focused solely on Sophia's well-being. My relationship with Amanda has deepened into something built on honesty, respect, and a hard-won appreciation for true fidelity. The pain of betrayal never completely disappears, but its sharp edges have softened with time. I have learned that even the deepest wounds can heal, leaving scars that remind us of our strength rather than our suffering. If you have ever experienced betrayal or had to rebuild your life after a devastating loss, I would love to hear your story in the comments below. How did you find the strength to move forward? What lessons did you learn along the way? Do not forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories of resilience and healing. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, sometimes the most painful truths lead us to the most authentic lives. Your past does not define you, but how you respond to it absolutely will.